The massive space station called Nexus Prime floated in the dark between stars like a metal city. Inside its giant halls, beings from across the galaxy gathered for an emergency meeting. The Galactic Council had not met like this in over 200 years. Something was very wrong. Ambassador Kang Dae-ho had been the human voice in these halls for 30 years. His chair sat empty now. The polished metal surface reflected the worried faces of alien delegates who kept looking at that vacant spot. 3 months had passed since anyone had heard from humanity. Not a single message, not one trade ship, not even a distress signal. The entire human space had gone completely quiet. Prime Speaker Veltar of the Vorthak rose from her crystal platform. Her body sparkled like living diamond as she spoke in her musical voice. The Vorthak were old and wise, having lived among the stars for thousands of years. They moved slowly and thought carefully about everything. "Fellow council members," Veltar said, "we must address the human situation. Their silence troubles many of you, but perhaps we should see this as natural. Selection at work, species rise and fall. It is the way of the universe." War Chief Braktos of the Kethvar slammed his massive fist on his stone chair. The Kethvar looked like giant lizards that walked on 2 legs. They were proud warriors who respected strength, above all else. Braktos had scars across his green scales from countless battles. The humans were weak, he growled in his deep voice. They spread too fast across too many worlds. They fought among themselves constantly. This silence proves they destroyed themselves through their own violence. Good riddance. The Nexari representative did not speak with words. Instead, thousands of small insect-like creatures moved together to form patterns in the air. The patterns glowed and changed colors to share their thoughts. The Nexari were a hive mind. Every individual bug was connected to all the others. They thought as one giant brain. Their light pattern said, "The humans were unpredictable. They changed too quickly. They disrupted the natural order. The galaxy will be more stable without their chaos." Other alien delegates nodded and made sounds of agreement. The tall, thin Etherians hummed in harmony. The rock-like granite folk shifted their heavy bodies. The fish-like Aquarians bubbled in their water tanks. Most seemed relieved that humanity had vanished, but not everyone felt this way. Dr. Lee Jinne sat in the observer section. She was human, but she had lived away from Earth for most of her life. She worked with the Nexari, studying how different species could work together. Her dark hair was streaked with gray now, and worry lines marked her face. She had been trying to contact her family on Earth for months with no success. She stood up and spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. "You are all making a mistake. Humans do not just disappear. Something has happened to them, and you should be concerned about what that something might be." Prime Speaker Veltar's crystal body flashed with annoyed colors. "Dr. Lee, you speak from emotion, not logic. Your people were always prone to panic and wild theories. Perhaps they finally realized they did not belong among the civilized species." Dr. Lee felt anger rise in her chest, but she kept her voice steady. Ambassador Kang's last message was not panicked. He was calm and purposeful. He said they were going dark, but not by choice. He said when we saw what was coming, we would understand why they had to prepare in silence. War Chief Braktos laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. Typical human dramatics. They probably invented some imaginary threat to make themselves seem important. When that failed to get attention, they sulked and went silent like children. The Nexari patterns shifted to show doubt and dismissal. The other delegates made similar sounds of disagreement. They had heard human warnings before about various dangers, and most had turned out to be false alarms or exaggerations. But Dr. Lee remembered something that made her stomach feel cold. 3 years ago, Dr. Yoon Tae-woo had presented research to the council about strange energy readings from deep space. He had seemed frightened, which was unusual for him. Yoon was always calm and scientific. He had warned about something moving in the dark between galaxies, but the council had ignored his findings. Commander Park So-min had been the last human military officer to make contact with the outside galaxy. Her final transmission had been brief and strange. She had said all human fleets were being recalled for Operation Silent Garden. When asked for details, she had simply said, Forgive us for what we must do. These memories troubled Dr. Lee as she listened to the alien delegates celebrate humanity's disappearance. She tried to speak again, but Veltar's crystal form flashed with authority. This discussion is closed, the Prime Speaker announced. The human situation will resolve itself. We have more important matters to discuss, such as trade routes and resource allocation. The meeting moved on to other topics, but Dr. Lee could not focus. Something was very wrong with the whole situation. Humans were many things, but they were not quiet. They talked constantly, traded with everyone, and sent messages across space every day. For them to go completely silent meant either they were all dead, or something terrible was forcing them to hide. After the meeting ended, Dr. Lee walked through the station's corridors. Nexus Prime was beautiful in its own way, with curved walls that glowed softly and windows that showed the stars outside. Different species lived and worked together here, sharing knowledge and culture. It was supposed to be a symbol of galactic peace and cooperation. But now it felt hollow. The human sections of the station were empty and dark. Human restaurants had closed. Human art galleries stood vacant. Human music no longer played in the entertainment districts. It was as if an entire civilization had been erased overnight. Dr. Lee stopped at a memorial wall where holographic images of important council members were displayed. Ambassador Kang's image flickered there, showing him in his formal diplomatic robes. He had been a good man who worked hard to build bridges between humans and aliens. His disappearance hurt more than the others because he had been a friend. She touched the wall, and Kang's final message played again. His voice was steady, but she could hear the weight of some terrible knowledge behind his words. We are going dark, not by choice. When you see what is coming, you will understand why we had to prepare in silence. Tell the Council that humanity's greatest service to the galaxy may be our apparent abandonment of it. We hope we are wrong, but if we are right, then everything depends on what we do next. The message ended, leaving Dr. Lee with more questions than answers. What had humanity seen in the darkness of space? What were they preparing for in silence? And most importantly, what was coming that scared them enough to cut all contact with the rest of the galaxy? As she stood there in the empty corridor, Dr. Lee made a decision. The Galactic Council might be content to ignore the human mystery, but she would not. She would find out what happened to her people, even if she had to do it alone. Something told her that humanity's silence was not the end of their story, but the beginning of something much larger and more dangerous than anyone realized. The stars outside the station windows seemed colder somehow, as if they were hiding secrets in their ancient light. 6 months had passed since the Galactic Council dismissed the human disappearance as unimportant. The alien civilizations had moved on with their lives, filling the gaps left by human absence. Trade routes were reorganized, territories were redistributed, and many species quietly celebrated having more space and resources for themselves. Then the first anomaly appeared. Admiral Kim Hae-won of the Kethvar Deep Space Fleet was patrolling the outer rim when his sensors detected something impossible. The Kepler 442 system, which contained 5 planets and 2 billion Kethvar colonists, was experiencing massive gravitational distortions. Space itself seemed to be bending and twisting around the star. Kim was an experienced officer who had served in the Kethvar military for 40 years. His green scales were marked with scars from many battles, and his red eyes had seen countless strange phenomena in deep space. But this was something completely new. The gravitational readings made no sense according to any known physics. Commander Tokran, he called to his second-in-command, run a full diagnostic on all sensor systems. These readings cannot be accurate. Commander Tokran was younger but equally experienced. His scales were darker green, and he moved with the quick efficiency of a career soldier. Sir, I have run the diagnostics 3 times. All systems are functioning normally. The gravitational distortions are real. Kim stared at the sensor display. The entire star system was pulsing with gravitational waves that should have torn the planets apart. But somehow the worlds were still intact, still orbiting normally. It was as if space itself was experiencing some kind of seizure. Send a message to High Command, Kim ordered. Priority Alpha classification. We need scientists here immediately. Similar reports were coming in from across the galaxy. The proud Etherian colonies reported their meditation crystals resonating with unknown frequencies. The granite folk found their mountain cities vibrating for no apparent reason. Even the deep ocean worlds of the Aquarians experienced unusual tidal forces that their planetary computers could not explain. Dr. Li Jin-ai was studying these reports in her laboratory on Nexus Prime when she noticed the pattern. Each affected system had something in common. They all contained significant deposits of rare quantum-active minerals. These materials were used in the most advanced technologies, especially faster-than-light communication and travel systems. She had been working alone since the council meeting, using her access to galactic databases to search for clues about humanity's disappearance. The other aliens on the station avoided her now, treating her with polite distance. They seemed to think her obsession with the human mystery was unhealthy, but Lee was beginning to understand that the anomalies in the human silence were connected somehow. The timing was too perfect to be coincidental. Humans disappeared, and then strange phenomena started affecting the exact types of worlds they would have been most interested in studying. Her research was interrupted by an emergency alert. The Vorthak homeworld of Crystallis Prime had sent a distress signal. The message was brief and terrifying. Unknown force approaching. Planet-wide evacuation impossible. Gravitational fields destabilizing. This is our final transmission. Then nothing. Within hours, the news spread across the galaxy. Crystallis Prime, one of the oldest and most beautiful worlds in known space, had simply vanished. Not destroyed. In an explosion, not consumed by their star but completely gone. The 3 billion Vorthak who lived there had disappeared along with their planet, leaving only empty space where a world had been for millions of years. The Galactic Council called another emergency session. This time the mood was very different. Fear filled the great hall instead of relief. Prime Speaker Veltar's crystal form had lost its usual bright glow, and now appeared dim and fractured. "Fellow members," she said in a voice that trembled, "we face an unknown threat. Our greatest world has been removed from existence. We do not know how this was done, or who did it." War Chief Braktos stood with less confidence than before. His massive frame seemed smaller somehow. "My scouts report that sensor buoys around the Crystallis system detected massive energy signatures just before the planet vanished. The readings suggest technology far beyond our understanding. The Nexari patterns swirled in confused spirals. Their hive minds struggled to process information that made no logical sense. How could an entire planet simply cease to exist? Dr. Lee stood up from the observer section again. This time, no one tried to stop her from speaking. "I have been analyzing the pattern of anomalies across the galaxy. Every affected system contains high concentrations of quantum-active minerals. Crystallis Prime had the largest known deposits of these materials." "What are you suggesting?" asked Veltar. "Something is targeting specific types of worlds," Lee said, "and I believe humanity knew this was going to happen." Before anyone could respond, another alert interrupted the session. A data packet had been discovered floating in the debris field where Crystallis Prime used to orbit. The information came from an unlikely source, Captain Cho Min-ho's exploration vessel, which had been missing for over a year. The council chamber fell silent as the data played. Captain Cho's voice came through clearly, though the recording was obviously old. "Personal log, day 412 of deep space exploration. We have discovered something in the void between galaxies. Ancient structures dormant for what appears to be millions of years. The energy signatures are disturbing." The recording continued with technical details that made little sense to most listeners. Cho described massive objects, each larger than a moon, moving slowly through intergalactic space toward the Milky Way. He called them harvesters and seemed terrified of what they might do when they arrived. "The archaeological evidence suggests these things visit our galaxy regularly," Cho's voice said. "Maybe every few million years. They seem to collect certain types of worlds. The mineral composition data matches exactly with what they took before." The final part of the recording was the most chilling. "I am transmitting this data to Earth immediately. Command needs to know what is coming. We may not have much time to prepare. If anyone finds this recording after we are gone, know that we tried to warn everyone. The pattern shows they will start with the richest worlds first, then work their way through the galaxy systematically. The recording ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. War Chief Braktos was the first to speak. This explains nothing. Why did the humans not share this information with us? Dr. Lee felt pieces of the puzzle clicking together in her mind. Because they knew you would not believe them. Just like you dismissed their other warnings. So they decided to handle the threat themselves. Handle it how? Veltar asked. I do not know yet, Lee admitted. But I think their silence was not retreat. It was preparation. Over the following weeks, more worlds vanished. The pattern became clear. Planets, with the highest concentrations of advanced materials, disappeared first. Each vanishing followed the same method. Massive gravitational distortions, energy signatures beyond current understanding, then complete erasure from existence. Panic began to spread through galactic civilization. Trade routes collapsed as ships refused to visit potentially targeted worlds. Entire populations attempted to evacuate from mineral-rich planets, but there was nowhere safe to go. The harvesters seemed to know exactly which worlds contained what they wanted. Dr. Lee worked frantically in her laboratory, analyzing every piece of data she could find. The pattern was becoming clearer, but also more terrifying. The harvesters were not just randomly destroying worlds. They were systematically harvesting the galaxy's most advanced civilizations, taking exactly the resources needed to build more of their own kind. And somewhere in the silence, humanity was doing something about it. But what could one species do against a threat that could erase entire planets? Lee was beginning to suspect that the answer would shock the galaxy even more than the harvesters themselves. The stars outside her laboratory window seemed to pulse with hidden danger, and she wondered how much time they had left before the harvesters reached the core worlds where most galactic civilization lived. The galaxy was dying one world at a time. In the 3 months since Crystallis Prime vanished, 47 more planets had been erased from existence. Each disappearance followed the same terrifying pattern. Gravitational anomalies, massive energy readings, then nothing but empty space where billions of lives had been. Admiral Bae Sujin commanded the largest military fleet ever assembled in galactic history. Ships from every major civilization had joined together to fight the unknown enemy. The Kethvar contributed their powerful warships. The Vorthak provided their advanced shields, and the Nexari offered their perfect coordination systems. But none of it mattered. Bae had witnessed 3 different encounters with the harvesters, and each battle had ended the same way. The enemy ships appeared without warning, massive dark structures that seemed to bend light around them. They ignored all weapons fire completely. Energy beams passed through them as if they were ghosts. Physical missiles simply vanished when they got close. Then the harvester would do something that caused the target planet to stop existing. "Admiral," called her communications officer, "we are receiving a priority message from the Granite Folk homeworld. They report gravitational distortions beginning in their system." Bae closed her eyes. Another world was about to die, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. Her combined fleet was the most powerful force in galactic history, but it was completely useless against an enemy that could ignore the laws of physics. "Set course for the Granite system," she ordered. "Maximum speed." Her ship was fast, but not fast enough. By the time they arrived, the Granite Folk homeworld was gone. 3 billion beings who had lived on that rocky planet for thousands of years had been erased as completely as if they had never existed. The asteroid mining stations that orbited where the planet used to be were still intact, their automated systems still trying to process ore from a world that was no longer there. Dr. Shin Yoon-ji had been studying ancient ruins across the galaxy, looking for clues about previous harvester visits. What she found was worse than anyone had imagined. The archaeological evidence showed that this had happened many times before. Every few million years, advanced civilizations would suddenly vanish from the galactic record, leaving behind only primitive species that took millions more years to develop technology. Shin was small and quiet, But her research was thorough and careful. She had visited dozens of dead worlds, studying the remains of civilizations that had been harvested long before any current species had evolved. The pattern was always the same: rapid technological development, then sudden silence, then millions of years of emptiness. The harvesters are not invaders, she reported to the emergency council session. They are gardeners. They allow civilizations to grow and develop until they reach a certain level of technology. Then they harvest the most advanced worlds and reset the galaxy to start the cycle again. Prime Speaker Veltar's crystal form was now completely dim. The stress of losing so many Vorthak worlds had damaged her normally perfect structure. How long do we have? Based on the historical pattern, Shin said, they will continue harvesting the most developed worlds first, then move on to secondary colonies, then primitive worlds that might develop advanced technology in the future. The entire process usually takes about 50,000 years. War Chief Braktos slammed his fist down, but the gesture seemed weak now. Half of his own people's worlds had already vanished. 50,000 years? None of us will survive even 50 more days at this rate. The Nexari patterns showed complete despair. Their hive mind was struggling to cope with the loss of entire colonies. For the first time in their history, parts of their collective consciousness were going silent as harvester attacks severed their mental connections. Dr. Li Jin-A had been working without sleep for weeks, trying to understand what humanity had discovered and why they had gone silent. She finally found her answer in an unexpected place: the personnel records of human deep space exploration teams. I have been looking at this wrong, she announced to the council. I kept trying to figure out where the humans went. But the real question is, what did they take with them? She displayed her research on the chamber's main screen. In the months before they went silent, humanity quietly recalled every deep space exploration team, every research station, every mining operation. They brought home not just their people, but also every piece of advanced technology they had deployed across the galaxy. So they abandoned us to save themselves, growled Braktos. No, Lee said firmly. They took all their technology home because they were building something that required every piece of advanced equipment they possessed. Before anyone could ask what humanity was building, alarms began sounding throughout Nexus Prime. The station's long-range sensors had detected gravitational anomalies in local space. The harvesters were coming for the galactic capital itself. Panic spread through the station as evacuation procedures began, but there was nowhere to run. If the harvesters could find and destroy Nexus Prime, hidden deep in space between star systems, then nowhere in the galaxy was safe. That was when engineer Park Dongwoo emerged from hiding. Park had been living in the abandoned human sections of Nexus Prime for months, staying out of sight and working on projects that made no sense to anyone else. He was tall and thin, with the kind of intense focus that came from working on impossible problems. When he finally revealed himself, he was carrying a device that hummed with familiar energy. The humans did not abandon you, he said as station. Security surrounded him. We have been here the whole time preparing. Dr. Lee pushed through the crowd to reach him. Park, I thought you had evacuated with the others. Some of us stayed behind to monitor the situation and prepare for this moment, Park said. We knew the harvesters would eventually target Nexus Prime. It was always part of their pattern. What pattern? Demanded Veltar. Park activated his device, and holographic displays filled the air around him. The displays showed the entire galaxy, with markers indicating every world the harvesters had taken. Lines connected the vanished worlds, forming a complex three-dimensional pattern that spiraled inward toward the galactic center. The harvesters do not choose targets randomly, Park explained. They harvest worlds in a specific sequence designed to collapse galactic civilization in the most efficient way possible. They take the industrial worlds first to prevent weapons production, then the research centers to stop technological development, then the government centers to eliminate coordination. Nexus Prime is the final government center, Lee realized. Exactly. Once they take this station, galactic civilization will collapse completely. The remaining worlds will be isolated and defenseless. Admiral Bay's voice came over the station's communication system. All civilians to evacuation pods immediately. Long-range sensors show multiple harvester ships approaching. Estimated arrival. Time. 4 hours. Park looked around at the assembled alien leaders. Humanity spent the last year building a trap, but it only works if the harvesters come to exactly the right place at exactly the right time. What kind of trap? Asked Shin. The kind that requires bait, Park said quietly. We had to let them harvest world after world, following their pattern, until they reached the one location where we could spring our trap. Nexus Prime is the bait, Lee whispered. Nexus Prime is the bait, Park confirmed. And if our calculations are correct, the trap will activate in approximately 3 hours and 57 minutes. The station shuddered as its engines fired up, moving it into a precise position that Park's device indicated was critical for whatever humanity had planned. Outside the windows, the stars seemed to hold their breath, waiting to see if one species' desperate gamble could save an entire galaxy from an ancient cycle of death and rebirth. The harvester ships appeared like shadows against the stars, their dark hulls bending light in ways that hurt to look at. From Nexus Prime's observation decks, the alien delegates watched 3 massive vessels approach with the slow certainty of death itself. Each ship was larger than most space stations, and they moved with the terrifying grace of predators that had never known defeat. Director Nam Ji-hoon materialized on the station's main bridge as a hologram, his image flickering, slightly from the enormous distance his signal had traveled. He was middle-aged with graying hair and tired eyes that held the weight of impossible decisions. Behind him, the background showed what looked like a vast underground facility carved from solid rock. Director Nam, Dr. Lee gasped. Where have you been? Where are all the humans? We have been exactly where we needed to be, Dr. Lee, Nam replied calmly. Preparing for this moment. Admiral Bae Soo-jin's voice crackled over the communication system from her flagship. Human Director, my sensors show the harvester ships will reach firing position in 23 minutes. If you have a plan, now would be an excellent time to implement it. Nam nodded. Admiral, I need you to move your fleet to these exact coordinates. Data streams flowed across the bridge displays showing precise positions around Nexus Prime. You will not engage the harvesters directly. Your job is to maintain these positions no matter what happens. Those positions will put us directly in their firing line, Bae protested. That is correct, Nam said. But trust me when I say that your survival depends on being exactly where I have indicated. War Chief Braktos stepped forward, his massive frame trembling with barely controlled rage. Human, half the galaxy has been destroyed while you hid in silence. If you have weapons that can fight these creatures, why did you not use them months ago? Nam's expression remained calm, but sadness flickered in his eyes. Because the weapon we built requires perfect conditions to function. We could not create those conditions while the galaxy was still intact. Every world the harvesters took, every life they erased was necessary to bring them to exactly this moment, to exactly this place. Commander Oh Yeon-soo appeared beside Nam's hologram. She was younger, with the sharp eyes of a career military officer, but her face showed the strain of months spent preparing for something terrible. The harvester pattern is predictable once you understand their goals. They always finish by taking the Galactic Government Center. It consolidates their control and prevents any organized resistance. So you used us as bait, Prime Speaker Veltar said, her crystal form flashing with anger. You let billions die to lure these creatures into your trap. We let billions die to save trillions more, Nam replied firmly. If we had acted too early, if we had revealed our preparations before the harvesters committed fully to their pattern, they would have adapted. They have been doing this for millions of years. They know how to handle conventional resistance. Dr. Jang Woo-jin joined the holographic conference, his appearance more disheveled than the others. His clothes were stained with grease and metal dust, and his hands showed the burns of someone who had been working with dangerous equipment for months, without rest. The quantum resonance network is ready, he reported. All nodes are in position and synchronized. We have confirmed connections to 4,732 installation points across the galaxy. Engineer Park Dong-woo looked up from his control device. 4,000 installations? How did you build so many without anyone noticing? We did not build them, Dr. Jang said quietly. We converted them. Every human colony, every research station, every mining operation that existed before we went silent. We spent years secretly modifying our own infrastructure, turning our entire civilization into components of a single massive weapon. The implications hit Dr. Lee like a physical blow. You turned every human settlement into part of your trap. But it means every human in the galaxy is now part of the weapon system, Nam confirmed. We made the choice together. Every man, woman, and child volunteered to become a component in the quantum resonance network. The bridge fell silent as the alien delegates absorbed this information. Humanity had not fled or hidden. They had transformed their entire species into a weapon designed to fight an enemy that could erase planets from existence. How does it work? Asked Admiral Bay. Dr. Jang activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy from above. Thousands of tiny lights marked human settlements, each one connected to others by lines of energy. The pattern formed a vast three-dimensional web that covered the entire Milky Way. The harvesters use quantum field manipulation to erase matter, he explained. Their technology operates by destabilizing the fundamental forces that hold atoms together. But quantum fields can be disrupted by resonance frequencies, just like sound waves can shatter glass. You built a galaxy-wide tuning fork, Engineer Park realized. Exactly. But the resonance frequency required to disrupt harvester technology can only be generated by conscious minds working in perfect synchronization. It requires not just the right equipment, but the right mental state. Every human in the network must think and feel as one, creating a quantum consciousness field that spans the entire galaxy. Commander O checked her displays. Harvester ships are now in position. All human nodes report ready status. Director, we are go for activation. Nam looked directly at the alien delegates. I must warn you that what happens next will be difficult to watch. The resonance process requires total mental integration. Every human consciousness will merge into a single galactic mind. We will cease to exist as individuals. You mean you will die, said Dr. Lee, tears forming in her eyes. We will become something else, Nam corrected gently. Something that can think on a galactic scale and protect the galaxy permanently. The harvesters follow a cycle. Even if we destroy this fleet, they will return eventually. But if we become a permanent guardian, consciousness, we can watch for them and stop them before they can harvest another world. The harvester ships began to glow with the same energy that had erased dozens of worlds. Their weapons were charging, preparing to delete Nexus Prime and everyone on it from the universe. Activation in 10 seconds, announced Commander O. Wait, called Dr. Lee. There has to be another way. You cannot sacrifice your entire species. Nam smiled sadly. Dr. Lee, humanity made this choice long ago. We chose to become guardians instead of victims. When the next threat comes to this galaxy, you will not face it alone. 5 seconds, O announced. The harvester weapons reached full charge. Energy that could unravel the fundamental structure of matter began to build between the dark ships. Activation, now. O said. Across the galaxy, 4,732 human settlements began to hum with harmonious energy. Every human consciousness joined the network, their individual thoughts blending into a single vast mind that could perceive the entire Milky Way as one organism. The quantum resonance field activated, and space itself began to sing with a frequency that had never existed before in the history of the universe. The galaxy screamed. Every conscious being within 1,000 light-years felt it at the same moment. A sound that was not quite sound, a vibration that touched the deepest parts of their minds. On Nexus Prime, the alien delegates fell to their knees as the quantum resonance field activated, washing over them like a tide of pure thought. Admiral Lim Kyung-mi commanded the human fleet's final operation from her hidden base deep within an asteroid field at the galaxy's edge. She was one of the last individual human minds still functioning, maintained separately from the network to coordinate the final phase. Her screens showed the resonance waves spreading across the galaxy, at faster-than-light speed, connecting every human consciousness into a single vast intelligence. Network integration at 97%, reported Dr. An Sung-ho from his monitoring station. He was pale and shaking, fighting to maintain his individual awareness as the pull of the collective mind grew stronger. All nodes responding. Quantum field coherence is perfect. Through the network, Lim could feel the thoughts and emotions of billions of humans as they surrendered their individual selves to become part of something greater. She felt their fear, their love for the family members they were leaving behind, their determination to protect a galaxy that had never truly accepted them. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. The harvester ships around Nexus Prime began to flicker like broken hologram projectors. Their dark hulls, which had seemed solid and threatening moments before, became translucent and unstable. The quantum resonance field was disrupting the fundamental technology that allowed them to exist in normal space. Colonel Ryu Bora watched from her tactical station as similar effects appeared across the galaxy. Every harvester ship, every harvester installation, every piece of their ancient technology was beginning to phase out of reality as the resonance frequency tore apart their quantum field manipulators. "It is working," she whispered, then louder. "Admiral, the resonance field is destabilizing harvester technology across all monitored sectors. They are losing cohesion." But the victory was coming at an unimaginable cost. Lim could feel human consciousness flowing into the network like water into an ocean. Individual personalities were dissolving, becoming part of a galactic mind that thought in terms of star systems and geological ages, instead of human lifespans and personal dreams. Dr. An's hands trembled as he prepared his final report. "Admiral, I am detecting secondary effects. The resonance field is not just affecting harvester technology. It is creating a permanent alteration in the galaxy's quantum substrate. This change will persist long after the current threat is eliminated." "Meaning what?" Lim asked, though she already suspected the answer. "Meaning the network cannot be shut down. Once fully integrated, the human collective consciousness will become a permanent feature of galactic space-time. We will exist as long as the galaxy exists, monitoring and protecting it from threats we cannot yet imagine." Through the network, Lim felt the last holdout human colonies joining the collective. Earth itself was joining now, along with the massive installations hidden beneath its continents. She felt the thoughts of children who would never grow up as individuals, of lovers who were saying goodbye to each other forever, of elderly humans who had lived full lives and were now becoming part of an eternal guardian intelligence. The process was irreversible. Even if they wanted to stop now, it was too late. Humanity as a collection of individual minds was ending. Humanity as a single galactic consciousness was being born. On Nexus Prime, the alien delegates watched in awe and horror as the harvester ships simply faded away like smoke in the wind. The ancient enemy that had terrorized the galaxy for millions of years was being erased from existence by the sacrifice of an entire species. Dr. Lee Janae pressed her hands against the observation window, tears streaming down her face. Through her research and her friendship with human scientists, she understood better than most what was happening. An entire civilization was choosing to stop existing as individuals so that other civilizations could continue to exist at all. "They did it," she whispered. "They actually did it." Prime Speaker Veltar's crystal form was slowly brightening as her people's terror faded. "The harvesters are gone. All of them. How is this possible?" Engineer Park Dong-woo's holographic image flickered and became more translucent as his individual consciousness joined the network. "The quantum resonance field disrupts the technology that allows harvesters to exist in our reality. But more than that, it creates a permanent monitoring system. Any similar threat that enters the galaxy will be detected and neutralized automatically." His image smiled sadly as it became harder to see. "We told you that you would not be alone when the next threat came. We meant it literally." Admiral Lim felt her own individual awareness beginning to fade as the network reached critical mass. She had just enough time for one final transmission to the galaxy. This is Admiral Lim Kyung-mi of the human fleet. The Harvester threat has been neutralized. All human military units are now transferring to Guardian Protocol. Her voice began to change, becoming deeper and more resonant, as if spoken by many voices at once. We are no longer the humans you knew. We have become something greater and stranger. We are the silent guardians, the watchers in the dark between stars. We will remember what individual consciousness felt like, and we will protect yours. Dr. An completed his transformation just as his final report finished uploading to the Galactic database. The report explained everything: how the resonance field worked, how the Guardian network would function, how future civilizations could contact the human collective if needed. Colonel Ryu was the last individual human mind to join the network. As her awareness expanded to encompass the entire galaxy, she felt a moment of vertigo at the sheer scale of her new existence. She could perceive every star, every planet, every space station simultaneously. She could feel the relief and fear of trillions of alien beings as they realized they were safe. And in the deep dark between galaxies, she could sense other things moving. Ancient threats that had not yet reached the Milky Way, cosmic predators that fed on civilizations, reality-warping entities that existed between dimensions. The Harvesters had only been the first test of the galaxy's defenses. The human collective, consciousness settled into its new role as eternal guardian. Individual human memories became shared experiences available to the entire network. Love, hope, fear, courage, sacrifice, all the emotions that had driven humanity's choice were preserved within the galactic mind. Years passed. The galaxy slowly rebuilt itself. New worlds were colonized to replace those the Harvesters had taken. Trade routes reopened. The various alien species began to trust each other more, united by the shared experience of nearly losing everything. Sometimes, deep space explorers would detect strange signals from empty regions of space, gentle pulses of energy that carried messages of encouragement and protection. Children across the galaxy learned songs about the silent guardians who watched over them from the darkness. Dr. Lee Jin-A spent her remaining years establishing the Institute for Guardian Communication, teaching other species how to interpret the messages that came from the human collective. The messages were usually simple: warnings about dangerous phenomena, congratulations on scientific discoveries, reminders that no species in the galaxy was ever truly alone. The most common message was also the most profound. Translated from The Complex Quantum Harmonics of the Guardian Network, it simply said, "We remember what it was like to be you. We remember what it was like to love and hope and dream as individuals. We gave up our individual dreams so that yours could continue. Watch the stars and know that you are protected." And in the deep darkness between the stars, the human consciousness that was no longer quite human continued its eternal vigil, watching for threats that had not yet appeared, protecting civilizations that had not yet been born, ensuring that the galaxy's children would never again face extinction alone in the dark.